To all of you here in the room on a Friday afternoon, a good afternoon to all of you who are joining us online. I know we have a strong contingent who are joining us online. My name is Joel Hellman. I'm Dean of the School of Foreign Service here at Georgetown University, and it is our pleasure and our honor to be able to host this event today. Now, I often ask myself, and I know many of us in our community do, in the face of what I can only describe as the reprehensible political bickering that prevents the United States and the international community from providing the full support that Ukraine needs to fight in the struggle for democracy, not just for its own sovereignty and its own future, but for the future of democracy in the world. What can we do in the face of this political bickering that prevents what is truly needed for Ukraine to take on this struggle for us all? We are a school of international affairs, but we are also a school which has the word service in our name. And we often think about what we can do to serve the causes that we believe in, not just to analyze them, but to engage and support. And it is a question like this that we are doing today that demonstrates what we feel is our obligation. Because what can we do in the face of this political bickering? We can highlight the critical importance of the issue that we're going to be discussing today. We can support the planning and thinking about what to do in the aftermath of the victory that we all hope Ukraine will achieve on all of our behalf. And we begin to understand the dynamics and the enormity of the challenge facing us to ensure that Ukraine's children are supported, returned home, safe, and have a future that will ensure the success of the country and contribute to democracy overall. That is the service that we can do in the face of this political moment. And that's why I'm so proud that we are supporting this event today, that we had such robust participation from our colleagues in Ukraine who are taking on this struggle, that we have such support from our colleagues in the US government who have been strongly advocating against the political tide of some parts of our political spectrum to provide the support necessary and the support of all of you here today. Of course, this issue should be and is incontrovertible, uncontroversial. International law is unambiguous in this case when it comes to the protection of children affected by conflict. And yet we know that the mechanisms of enforcement, the mechanisms of accountability, and in fact, even the political will are all proving to be inadequate as thousands of children and families remain vulnerable to attacks and are forcibly separated across conflict lines, most notably and most regrettably here in Ukraine, but in so many conflicts around the world. This conversation today will focus on Ukraine's efforts to protect its children, and importantly, the measures that we as international partners can do to support that effective response to Russia's policies of aggression against children and all Ukrainians. You know, and you will hear the figures, but just to start us off, recognizing that over 7 million children have been directly impacted by this war. And as we talk about hostages elsewhere, let's remind ourselves that 20,000 Ukrainian children are effectively hostage, having been forcibly deported out of their country to Russia. And fewer than 2% of those children, less than 400, have been returned. This is the largest missing persons operation, missing person crisis since World War II. And the global response has been totally inadequate to reverse that tide. So that is what we are here to discuss today. That's where the expertise, where the passion have been brought together today to try to convince the world that more needs to be done, that tries to set the stage and foundation for what needs to be done, and to insist that it should be done. So it is today that I want to welcome, of course, first and foremost, as I mentioned, our panelists from Ukraine who are on the front lines of this effort at child protection and this effort of securing our democratic principles. I want to thank the Embassy of Ukraine, Alexander Boryshenko, for the support of the Embassy of Ukraine and for being here today. I want to thank the U.S. State Department for being here and participating with us, the Deputy Assistant Secretary, Nicole Chulik, support of Natasha Gloger, Sarah Straney. I mention these because they're all Georgetown graduates, as well as being great servants to the U.S. government. I want to thank here at Georgetown, our office, the Vice President for Global Engagement, who's been supporting us. And I also want to shout out to the nearly 24 Ukrainian students that we have brought here to the campus during this crisis on full scholarship. They have, in the midst of tremendous stresses and strains that they are facing in their own families, their own parents, their own brothers and sisters being affected by this, everyone they know being affected by this. But yet they are here, they're continuing their education, they are contributing and advocating for Ukraine, and they are making such an enormous contribution to our own community at this critical time, and many of them are here today to help out and support this conference, and I want to shout out to them. And I do want to mention that this meeting today is not the only effort, of course, as you know, but it is very much important to say that it is in coordination with some other important efforts underway to promote this issue. Of course, led by the Ukrainian government, but also the Latvian government. They just concluded a conference on Russia's war on children just on Thursday, on February 1st, just yesterday. The Canadian government, we're pleased to say, will be announcing the establishment of an international coalition of countries to help return children abducted by Russia. And we have coordinated this event, of course, with the Embassy of Ukraine in the United States and the U.S. State Department to carry forth this momentum. So that's the goal today. That's the purpose that brought us all together today. I appreciate you all taking your time on a Friday afternoon to be with us and to participate in this. And let me then turn it over to the panel, this very, very distinguished panel, an influential panel. And let me turn the mic over to someone that I want to recognize as well, because she's been the force behind this, Jillian Huebner. She herself has been a member of President Zelensky's Bring the Kids Back task force at the request of Andriy Yermak and Baroness Helena Kennedy. She's also moderated the UN General High Assembly level panel on this issue at the request of the U.S. State Department. And of course, she's here in her capacity leading the collaborative on global children's issues, which is an important part of Georgetown's commitment to ensuring that we deeply understand and support the role of children around the world, but in particular in development, conflict situations, and others in which children are so vulnerable. So let me, again, thank you for coming, and let me turn the microphone over to Jillian Huebner to begin the afternoon's proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Hellman. Thank you all for coming. It's always such a pleasure to see this room full of people on the children's side. So I'm going to invite the panelists up here. Why don't you join us on the stage, because we'll be in conversation together. So Dimitro, yeah, all of you can come and join, and we'll sit and have a conversation. Take any seat, it doesn't matter, I think. Yeah, it's okay. And where's Nicole Chulik? She's coming? Oh, she's getting her mic? Okay. Great. And we're also joined by Kati Chaba, who will be zooming in from, oh, there she is, zooming in from Canada with good news for us today. So we'll start with this. I also wanted to reiterate my thanks to the Ukrainian Embassy and the U.S. Department of State, who've been just tremendous. This came together quite quickly when we knew everybody was coming to town, and we wanted to make sure that this issue was on the agenda, as so many conversations are happening this week as part of Ukraine Week, and as we head into the second anniversary of the full-scale invasion. The children, Mykola Kuleba from Save Ukraine has brought a number of children with him on this trip who were abducted and have been returned thanks to the efforts of Save Ukraine. They've actually been speaking in various venues in Washington this week, including at a hearing on Capitol Hill with the Helsinki Commission. They've met with USAID and members of the State Department. And as they're coming here and telling their stories, very bravely, but also very vulnerably, as I listened to them last night at the Ukrainian House, I thought, they're coming here with so much courage and telling us a truth. And what is the story they're hearing back from us in Washington about our commitment to them? I've been tracking this issue since the beginning, and I've been fortunate to be in settings where the issue is on the agenda, and we've heard condemnation again and again and again. But we're also telling a story about our values and our priorities through our budgets, through the 3 resolutions that have been languishing in Congress for over a year. And I feel like we need to do something that demonstrates to these children that we're not just upset, but that we are as courageous as they are, that we can do something. The system is broken. As Dean Hellman said, this is the largest missing persons case since World War II. We have international law. We have legal obligations. We even have international agencies that have the mandate to uphold those norms. We have standard mechanisms that have not yet kicked in. So is the message that we don't know what to do? We actually do know what to do, and all of the people here today are doing it. And so I'm lifting you up with so much gratitude for your courage, for your stamina, for your tenacity, for your truth-telling. And I'm looking forward to having this conversation so that you can tell us what is being done and how your partners here can do more to support you. So thank you. I'm going to start with you, Dmytro Lubinets, who's the Ombudsman, but also the Commissioner for Human Rights for the Parliament. And all of these people have been on the front lines of child protection on this issue. And not just the deportation issue and the return, but also general support for the Ukrainian children in the country. So given that the system is broken, we've heard you talk about this again and again, about what's not working. So in a sense, the Ukrainian government is innovating a new response. What does that innovation look like, and how can international partners be of support to you? Especially in Washington. What do you need?
Thank you very much, first of all. Thank you for organizing this discussion. We really appreciate. You mentioned that international law has a lot of mechanism of protection human rights. Yeah, we have international organizations, for example, UN organization. We have International Committee of Red Cross. We have a lot of conventions, resolutions. We have on the paper, we have the system of protection human rights, exactly the protection of children rights. But what we have in reality, now in Ukraine, Russian Federation openly deports, kidnaps Ukrainian children. 10 years, can you imagine? From 2014, openly Russian Federation deports Ukrainian children. How many children Russians deported, we don't know. It's really, honestly. Yeah, we have 19,546 children that's now confirmed that these children deported by Russian Federation. But this list of children contains only children from full-scale invasion from 24th of February 2022. I can say you that the first child that we officially recorded that was deported by Russians, it was child from Crimea, from Ukrainian Crimea, and it was on 2014. Russians even had a special program, so-called humanitarian program, Train of Hope. It means that Russians' family can come to Crimea, can choose any Ukrainian child, officially adopted this child, and transfer this child to Russian Federation. How many similar children were deported, we don't know. We try to receive all this information, but how? For example, my mandate, I'm head of independent constitutional institution. I sent several applies to United Nations organizations, for example, to ICRC, to different foundations, and I received only one answer for all this time. You know, that was official answer from UN. The answer was, thank you, Dmytro Lubinets, that you informed us about this problem. We're deeply concerned. We will try to do all our efforts to find all information about Ukrainian children from Russian side, and that's all. You know, to my opinion, we must be realistic. Look, now we have war not between Russia and Ukraine. We have war between two worlds. World of dictators from one side, Russia, Belarus, Iran, Northern Korea, and other countries who assist Russian Federation in different cases. For example, every day these countries buys Russians oil or gas, and on this case continue support Russian aggressor. And on another side is Ukraine and democratic countries, exactly only democratic countries. So you can compare that now we have the war between one system of management of countries, dictators, and another, democratic. And the international humanitarian law, the same. Democratic countries all respect to international humanitarian law. But how we can influence to countries who does not respect to international humanitarian law? Who can deport children, catch civilian hostages, violate all rights of prisoners of war, and we don't have real mechanism how to prevent this, how to stop this. We can create a lot new resolutions, but if Russians don't want respect to these resolutions only for us. This is the main idea of this war. And we should to understand that now, in my position, we don't have international system of protection human rights. This is the reality. What we should to do? Yeah, we must to continue to fight for our children and to our people. But we must to understand that now we have a hard time not only in Ukraine and not only for Ukraine. It's the hard time for international system. The system must understand it and change it. Create new mechanism how to react, something concrete. You know, sometimes I think that you can imagine that we on the chess club, yeah? I love play chess, maybe you too. You try to play chess and on the front of you, your partner, he wears boxer's equipments and start to beat him. You look on the sides and try to say, look, dear partners, my counter partner is not like a chess player. And all in others say to me, no, Dmitro, you can't beat him. No, we are chess players. We have rules. You can't do on the same issues, on the same mechanism. No, we are reflect to the international humanitarian, so-called our rules. So on this, the same similar position that now we have in Ukraine, 10 years, that Russia fights against us, that we tried to do a lot according to international humanitarian law, but how we can do it with Russians who can use, for Russians, all international humanitarian law, it's like papers, and they can use these papers in different ways. We must understand it. We must very quickly create effective new mechanism how to react on similar aggressions. For example, to unite our efforts and to assist country who under aggression. What is exactly now we have? Today in the center of the United States of America, in Washington, D.C., I want to send a strong message. That's look, if we want to win, we want Ukrainians. I know that Americans people want that Ukraine will win too, but we need to join our efforts. We can't to lose the time for very long discussions and create a new decisions. We have to react immediately to send to Ukraine military assistance. This only one mechanism to my mind who can stop this aggression. Yeah, powerful Ukrainian army. That's all. I don't see another mechanism how to protect the rights of all Ukrainians. Look, every day and every night, the whole territory of Ukraine under attack by Russian Federation. Russian missiles, Iran drones, Northern Koreans missiles, and it's continue and continue, and the situation worse and worse. And all this time we are waiting when our partners understand our situation. I'm very appreciate for the position of the United States of America. You know our situation. You did a lot, but we can't win without your assistance. You are the leader of the free world. You're the leader of the democratic world. This is your historical role. Yeah, we know that you're the most powerful country. And without your assistance, we can't win. And we can't stop this aggression. And we must recognize all activities of Russian Federation as a genocide. Genocide as a war crime has 5 elements. One of them is forcibly transferring children from one ethnic group to another. That's what exactly did Russian Federation. Occupied Ukrainian territory, took Ukrainian children, transferred to Russian territory, took away Ukrainian documents, certificate of birthday, gave Russians documents. Often I see that information Russians change, name, surname, even date of birthday. The last bright example, the situation with Margarita Prokopenko. She is small, young Ukrainian girl from Kherson. She was kidnapped by Sergei Mironov. Look, member of Russian parliament kidnapped Ukrainian girl and adopted and changed the name. Now Margarita is Marina. Prokopenko, she become Mironova. And how I can confirm that this girl exactly from Ukrainian family. I can send a lot of official applies across different international organizations. I did it according to Margarita. You know the answers of country who assist us on the procedure of returning Ukrainian children. They ask me how I can confirm that this girl is Ukrainian. This is the new challenge for us. Next step, we must to create special tribunal for punishment all activities of Russian Federation. We again appreciate of the 2 arrest warrants to Putin and Lvova Belova by International Criminal Court. But where is next arrest warrants? Thousands of Russians took participation on this procedure of deportation Ukrainian children. And again, I don't believe that someday Putin will be personal in New York, Hague, on the session of the International Criminal Court. I don't believe. So that's why we should to create new tribunal, because again, we don't have the real mechanism how to punishment all these activities. And the last, to my mind, but most important, we can't to be afraid to exclude representatives of Russian federations from international organizations. Why we are so afraid about it? Even discuss about it. Look, aggression, Ukraine, one of the country founder of United Nations organization, and Russian Federation, the permanent member of Security Council of United Nations organization. You know, on this way, the big family of ombudsman of the world, we did it. 2 biggest organizations, IOI, International Ombudsman Institute, and GANRI, Global Alliance of National Institutions of Human Rights. We voted officially for decisions of exclusion of representatives of Russian Federation. We did it. Why another international organization, first of all, United Nations organization, don't even start to discuss about this potential mechanism of stopping aggression of Russian Federation? We should to react immediately. We lost a lot of time. We are not the first country who under aggression of Russian Federation. The first it was Moldova, 1992. What was the reaction? Deeply concerned? The next step it was Chechnya, the first war, the second war, then it was Georgia, and again, only of the activities of the United States of America, Putin stopped nearly to the capital of Georgia. But what was the next steps? 20% of Georgia still under occupation by Russians. The next step, 2014, Crimea, then part of Donetsk and Lugansk region. What was the reaction? Deeply concerned, and that's all. You can't, we can't assist you by military. Why? Because it will be a new stage of aggression, a new wave of aggression by Russian Federation. Yeah, really? Look at the results. The whole territory of Ukraine under aggression. Millions and millions Ukrainians under attack by Russian Federation. And now the question is not if Russian open a new point of aggression or not. The question is who will be the next. This must be understandable for everyone. So I really want that today and not today, all decision makers in the United States of America will understand this situation. And you will do quick, effective, maybe new mechanism of stopping this aggression, reaction for this aggression. We must do everything for liberation of the whole territory of Ukraine, to survive all Ukrainian people, to show every countries, even potential countries, aggressors, that look, now from this day, you or will be respect international humanitarian law, or we will together will affect against you by all our mechanism, military, finance, diplomatic, political, very quickly, very effective, and close one day the whole potential aggressions of the world. This only one way, and we don't have another choice. Thank you.
You know, if you follow Mr. Lubinets on social media, and I hope you will, because you will see somebody who doesn't stop every day in the midst of this absolutely broken system. And you can see these individuals kind of taking it on their own shoulders as if it's theirs to solve, and you must feel like you're doing it on your own so much of the time. It's really humbling. So thank you for your courage. I'm going to turn now to Mykola Kuleba, who was once upon a time the Commissioner for Child Rights in Ukraine and now leads and founded Save Ukraine, which has been working since the start of the war in 2014 on a number of issues, but primarily around children. And we know from sort of the global studies of child protection that about 90% of the work is done at the community level. And governments and international systems are often lagging behind the frontline partners who are people like you. So we know that at least 20,000 kids have been forcibly removed from Ukraine. We know that 388 have been returned. That's less than 2%. And about 231 of those who've been returned were through Save Ukraine. Is that right? So you're doing something that works. But of course, if we were to scale that up to get all the kids back, it would take 90 years at this pace. So can you talk a little bit about what's working, how we could possibly scale it up, and what else we need to do to make sure that our response to Ukraine is military and yet also really robust in terms of its support of the children who are bearing the brunt? Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for everybody who's supporting Ukraine today, who helping us survive, and who help us to bring these kids home, and who help us to bring these kids to United States. I can see representative of Buffett Foundation here who help us to bring these kids here. I can see a lot of our partners who helping us every day to help kids who are suffering in Ukraine. You know, I heard from the beginning different interesting sentences and words, and like future of democracy, system broken, values, priorities, budget. What is values now during the war? Yeah, we are highlighting deported children issues because they are most vulnerable. It's what could be worse that a child who've been taken from the mother or father, who are hostages now, who are suffering there. Our kids have been witnessing in Congress yesterday on different platforms. It is obvious that it is genocide. But who will be so brave in United Nations to define this as genocide? No. Dmitry Lubinets told that our system broken and we have to fix it. Who will fix it? And we just before this meeting were talking with Melanie Weir about how to go, which steps we should go from the child who been kidnapped to rescue, return, recover, rebuild a life, and rebuild whole country, transform. Because it's a lot of discussion how we should rebuild our country, recover, and it is discussion without the answers. Save Ukraine working on the ground level. I started this work 25 years ago after Soviet Union collapsed and many street children were everywhere on the streets, in the basements of buildings. And I work with the orphans, with human traffic, children who've been trafficked. And on the governmental level, I build a system, deinstitutionalization reform, different things. But, you know, when war started, as the founder of Save Ukraine, we were flexible. We could immediately, with support of our partners, to start from evacuating children from combat zones. Our partners brought us cars, armored vehicles, and we built teams, rescue teams, and now we rescued more than 100,000 children, women from combat zones. And when we recognized that our kids have been kidnapped, we started our rescue mission, and we rescued a lot of kids. But it's a drop. It's a little. Many more kids now suffering and stay there. But taking back these kids and evacuating them, we were building a system, a model, how we can recover this child, how we can reunite with the family, what kind of services they need, and how these services should work during the war. It is about standards. You have not this standard. It's a new standards. Who will create this? How we should create this? It is a question for United States too. What you will be doing if something happened? How your system react on these problems? Are you ready to be flexible to change this system and to have immediate reaction? And I don't know, I have no answer, but we have this experience in Ukraine. That's why we ask questions ourselves. What can we do better from this child, this story, this tragedy? Because I can tell you hours about stories of that kids who've been kidnapped, who are suffering, and it's very hard. But at the same time, we are thinking about the future of these children. What should be done on the state government level, on the local government level? What should be done from the NGOs, from the churches, and especially from our partners who are helping us every day? And I can tell you what we are doing very shortly. We are taking these kids, orphans or non-orphans, reunite with families or together with families, and we place them to our Hope and Healing Centers. We have 6 months live-in program with the food. We dress these kids and families. We provide health checkups. We educate kids. It's our emergency response. And then we provide housing or accommodation. In our Fort Homes program, it's modular houses. We're building these houses or renting flats, and we employ these people. It's like a whole model, but it's not enough on the country level. That's why we are collaborating with the government who now provide this reform, the institutionalization reform, trying to engage local communities and help them provide services, but without support, we will never, ever build these services and reach these kids. And we're trying now to implement into local communities a model, a suite of childcare and family services, because it's a different group of children, children with disabilities. For example, in one local communities, we are piloting services, 605 children with disabilities and no services, nothing. That's why we're trying to assess local community and needs of children and families in local community and plan these services and implement these services and find solution for all these kids, for orphans, for children with disabilities, for children, for displaced, internally displaced kids, for children who lost one or both parents during the war and who hugely traumatized, who has gaps, educational gaps. It's a different. And one of our answer on these issues was creating education and empowerment community centers. It's a mix of different programs together where child can attend this center, and every day we provide daily meal, trauma therapy, education, and we work with parents. It is not educational program. It is not social service. It's a mix because we have to provide these services in one center. It's a new. And I can tell you a lot about what kind of services, what we should do. But I'm inviting you now to not only to think what could be good for Ukraine, but to join our efforts. And it doesn't matter, it is a US state government, it is NGO, it is institutional donors, it is a business, or students. Even students, or maybe students, can help us more, better. Maybe students of Georgetown University could be involved and help us to find the right ways, find solution for the most vulnerable. Find new system or model how we can, on the ground level, to build a new system for children who are affected by the war and provide assessment or build some services or fundraise for Ukrainian children. You are smart. You are here in this room and maybe you can see us online. Please welcome. Maybe you will be the most important partners who will make changes, who will find that solution which will be the greatest for kids. I don't know. It's a new phenomena for us, the genocide of huge amount of kids and traumatized children. Can you imagine 60% of children's population of Ukraine have been displaced? 60% of children. 1.5 million of kids living under the Russians after the 10 years of the first invasion 10 years ago. And many of them have been brainwashed and weaponized, not only against Ukraine, against the United States. They hate you. What could be done? What deprogramming program should be? What is this? What is this? What is our reaction on the brainwashing kids? What it should look like? You can help us. We piloting this in our programs, but we need your support because we don't know who is next. If you will not support us to stand, to fight, who will be the next? Which country? Putin never stopped. Let's help us to stand, help our kids, our families, and maybe we will be able to help you with your kids. I don't know. Thank you so much.
one of the things that we talk about a lot at the Collaborative when we're looking at issues affecting children is the need for innovation. We often talk about innovating protection, recognizing that all the words on paper, as you said, only go so far if they're not implemented. And the solutions that we often find, whether it's at the border crisis or in Ukraine, are often innovative ideas coming out of the communities or coming out of civil society in partnership with the government. I'm thinking now of the Regional Center for Human Rights and one Ukrainian lawyer, Katerina Rashevska, who's kind of pieced together international law and looked at proposing a legal mechanism that could be created and implemented that would work. So all of these initiatives that are underway are really fascinating. I mean, in the midst of this chaos and destruction, there's also just brilliance coming out of the woodwork that it's worth us paying attention to. I also just wanted to flag that on your programs, there's a QR code where we've compiled a lot of resources. We assume that everybody in the room is pretty well up to speed on this, but there's some really interesting reports coming out of Ukraine and whatnot coming out of the government. We wanted to make sure you had access to those that were vetted by the panelists and others, State Department and the Ukrainian Embassy as well. So speaking of innovation and the brokenness of the system, I wanted to invite Kati Chaba to join us. Hi, Kati. Kati is the Executive Director of the Ukraine Bureau for Global Affairs Canada. And she has been working tirelessly to make sure that international governments are working together on this issue. And you announced today the formation of a new international coalition. So we feel excited to have you sort of hot off the press to tell us about what that is and how you expect the coalition to work, how large it is, what more can be done to expand it, what's coming in that regard.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the invitation to be a member of today's panel. It's a real honor to be able to speak about our work. I am indeed excited to share the news of today's launch of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. But before I get into the details of that, I also wanted to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Dmytro Lubinets for his leadership role in getting this international coalition underway. And while he's been in Washington this week, we've been working very closely with the members of his team in his office, and they have been so helpful in pulling together the last details of today's launch. So indeed, earlier today, Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mélanie Joly, joined with Andriy Yermak, the President Zelensky's Chief of Staff, to launch the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children in Kyiv. And this was one of the primary purposes of our minister's trip. Following the high-level remarks of Mr. Yermak and Minister Joly, we had the opportunity to hear from one young person who shared his story of how he ended up in Russia, the challenges that he faced while he was there, and how he was finally able to return to Ukraine. And we all recognized in hearing his story that that is just one of the many thousands of situations, most of which are still unresolved. After that high-level opening, we entered into a technical discussion, which I had the pleasure of moderating, and there we really got into more of the nitty-gritty of what we expect this international coalition to do. And so I can say after today's session that it is certain that we will have a broad coalition, although it will likely be another couple of weeks or so before we have a full and clear picture of membership. Countries were invited to share today if they would wish to become members of the international coalition. And we were pleased to have 6 new members confirm their participation today for a total of 28 countries so far. We know that other countries are still considering whether they wish to join. They're consulting internally, and we will be following up with them to encourage their participation. And we've also earlier this week engaged through our embassy, our network of embassies abroad, working also with Ukraine's network of embassies abroad to do joint démarches in a large number of countries to encourage them to participate. As you can imagine, the majority of the countries that have confirmed so far are what we consider our like-minded partners, our traditional partners, so many of them based in Europe. But it is important that this coalition have broader representation as well from across the globe. So in that context, I'm happy to say that we had representatives from quite a few regions on the call. And just to name a few, we had Timor-Leste listening in, Costa Rica, Morocco, Peru, in addition to, of course, all the European countries, as well as, of course, the US, the UK, and others. We do hope that some of these countries, at least, will choose to join the coalition. So how do we go from here, from today's event? We are expecting to have regular online meetings of coalition partners. We're planning our next full meeting for April. But we're also going to be organizing regular briefings with the Ottawa-based diplomatic missions as a way to make sure that we can fast track certain discussions and share information quickly and engage on issues that emerge quickly. We will be following up next week to ensure that we get the information we need from all participating countries so that we can have the right contact information and we can be in touch going forward, and also to confirm those countries which choose to join the coalition. And the way we see ourselves organizing the work of the coalition is around several lines of effort. So first will be a coordination of efforts. So that's amongst ourselves as countries, of course, working closely with the Ukrainian leads, but also with the international organizations. We know that we'll need to engage in information sharing around data such as where are these missing children actually located, but also information around what has been working well so far in those few cases that have been successful of bringing children back, but also what are the key roadblocks so that we can develop a common understanding and then we can refine our response mechanisms. Third, we're going to need to align our capabilities and consider how we can synchronize the expertise, the capabilities that exist in different countries, as well as the financial resources of participating countries that support the work of the coalition. Because we know there's work going on, and how do we pull the pieces together? And then finally, we know there's also a strong need for advocacy and communications. So we will organize a communications campaign to bring attention to the issue and also to fight Russian disinformation about what's happening to children, and also engage in high-level diplomatic engagement in support of the return of Ukrainian children. As we've heard from some of the previous speakers, there are very practical steps too that need to be taken to bring children back. And so all of these lines of effort that I just described will be organized around those practical steps. So that includes collecting data on which children are missing, and then looking for where those children are located in Russia. And there will be a need to collect that information through various ways, and including through intelligence. We'll need to then undertake the necessary steps to bring children back, physically back to Ukraine. Once they're back, there will also be huge needs to support them and their families, and that includes psychosocial support. The issue of unbrainwashing children who've been in Russia for a long time is clearly an important one, as we just heard. And then collecting evidence about all of these cases so that over the longer term we can bring the perpetrators to justice. So, what we expect from participating countries is that they are going to flag areas of particular interest where they wish to engage, whether it's through sharing expertise or engaging financial resources. That they share information on what measures they have underway or are being planned to support this work, and then really gather that experience that can prove helpful in advancing the work of this coalition. And it was clear from today's discussions that there are several countries that are already engaged in activities that support one or more of these practical steps. So we recognize that we want to build on existing work, not just of the countries that may be involved, but also through the Bring Back Kids platform that the government of Ukraine has put in place, so that we can build on those current efforts and avoid duplication. We also, as I mentioned, will want to engage with international organizations as well as civil society organizations working in this space. Again, we want to learn from best practices and avoid duplication. I also want to acknowledge that some of this work is going to happen in quiet, behind the scenes ways, and not all of this will become then public information. But there are countries that are in a position to be able to negotiate directly with Russia to bring back groups of children. We don't anticipate, for example, that Canada would be in a role to negotiate directly with Russia, but we will turn to other countries that are willing to do that. And one idea is to then provide lists of specific children that have been located, and ask a country that can play that kind of behind the scenes mediating role to help bring out groups of children. At the same time, we also acknowledge that it's important to respect the privacy considerations of the children who are in this situation, as well as their family members. So to conclude, I want to say we're happy with the way that the launch went today. There's clearly interest and motivation to work on the important task of bringing back Ukrainian children, and we want to build on this momentum to move ahead as quickly as we can. But I also recognize, and the previous two speakers have offered very sobering remarks, that I don't want to appear overly optimistic or naive. We all understand that there is a long and difficult road ahead. There are many, many cases that need to be resolved, each one of them complex in its own way. But we hope, and we see that this international coalition could serve as a practical, constructive way to support Ukraine on this important issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is really good news. Thank you for your leadership and your creative and sensitive problem solving too. I mean, the track 2 element of this is really interesting. I understand that we can't know everything about it right now, but one day I really look forward to reading about it and learning from it. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move to the U.S. Department of State. Nicole Chulik, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. And the U.S. State Department has played a leading role voicing concerns about this at the UN Security Council, especially during your leadership in August. And you held a session specifically on this issue where you focused also on sanctions. So can you tell us a little bit about that, the strategic play in terms of sanctions and how that's being coordinated, and what else the State Department has done and is doing to support this issue?
So thank you very much, and it's my privilege and honor to be on stage with my Ukrainian colleagues as we talk about this incredibly difficult issue. There were a couple of us talking before we started the formal presentation, and it was remarked still, even today, how little is known in some places about what's happening in Ukraine. Not just with the children, but about the war in general and what Russia has done. And so I think it's incredibly important, and I thank Georgetown for putting this on, to continue to raise the profile of these issues, to inform the public. It's not only in the United States, we were actually talking about lack of knowledge in Europe, but to continue to talk about these issues so that everybody understands the severity of the problem. I mean, let's be clear about it. Russia's transfer and deportation of Ukrainian children is an attempt to undermine and destroy Ukraine's identity. That's what it is. And frankly, and you heard it up here, the only way we are going to solve this problem is for Ukraine to be victorious against Russia. That's the ultimate solution. we may have a little ways to go on that road. So what are we doing in the interim? You've heard some really good threads here, both from my Ukrainian colleagues and from Kati, who had really good news in a situation that is fairly dire. So the United States perspective is that we're looking at it in two ways. One of them is still just raising awareness of the severity of the situation and making sure that we are using all the fora, as you mentioned, at our disposal to just, again, continue that drumbeat of information about the situation. As you mentioned, during our our presidency of the UN Security Council, we made this a primary issue, and then we hosted something at UNGA as well. We've also done things multilaterally where we have worked with the different mechanisms out there, specifically the OSCE and the Moscow mechanism and supporting that. And we're doing things programmatically as well. So that means we're supporting NGOs, civil society organizations, those that work with children in Ukraine. We're also working with educational and research institutions who have published research on the issue. We are also working to declassify information about the severity of the problem. Again, that gets to shining a light on what's actually happening and spreading that information around here in the United States, but also internationally. I mean, I think that is, again, still one of the primary issues that we are struggling with, a lack of understanding about how important this is and how dire. You all understand it. You're here for a reason. You're here because you know the issues, but there's a great swath of people out there who still don't understand the severity of the issue. And then second, we're supporting in multilateral fora and collaboration through, as Kati had just mentioned, this new initiative, this new coalition, looking at ways that we can partner internationally to further the issue, to address it, and to find concrete solutions. I mean, that's what we're all struggling with right now, is finding concrete ways to bring these children home. And we hope to go forward working with this coalition to ensure that we are doing everything we can on that front. We have looked at sanctions, and we will continue to look at sanctions. Nothing to announce today on that front, but that is a tool that we can use in the future. Thank you.
And I just wanted to note also that state is funding the Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group, which is one of the leaders is from Georgetown, and he's currently in Kiev working with your prosecutor general. And there's some really remarkable work going on there. And that's also largely supported by the Conflict Observatory, which we have a colleague in the audience here, documenting in very careful detail what's happening, which will also help feed into the war crimes prosecution. So that's really valuable and important work. And those reports from the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab are linked on that QR code. So if you want a really interesting read, that'll keep you up all weekend. Thank you so much. And I would like to move now to talk about the congressional side of this, the parliamentarian side of this. So Lesia sorry, is a member of parliament in Ukraine representing Kiev. And you've been very active on this issue, not only in Ukraine with your own parliament, but working with parliamentarians around the world. And what are you seeing that's working there? I mean, we saw some really good news from Europe and the Council of Europe last week with really strong resolutions. I hope the US Congress takes notes. Those are helpful resolutions, right, that you can actually act on and do something. And you and your colleagues had quite a bit to do with setting that up. So let us know what the parliamentarians are up to.
Thank you, Gillian. Thank you, everybody, dear friends. First of all, I would like to say that it's a great honor to be here and to talk about one of the most important issues for Ukraine. Actually, what is the main value for all countries, for Ukraine, for the United States, for all European countries? It is our children because it's our future and it is our freedom. And it's actually for what we are fighting just now. Because if we will not save our children, we will lose our country. And if we talk about the figures, I would like to remind you that now we have almost 20,000 of Ukrainian children, this is official data, which were deported to Russia. But if we talk about non-official data, because we haven't information from temporary occupied territories, it is almost about 100,000 of Ukrainian children. I am absolutely agree with Nicole. It's about genocide. It's about genocide and it's about non-identity of our country in future. So we call you to join us in this struggle because it's a struggle for the future of Ukraine and not only Ukraine. As my colleagues mentioned, it's about the future of all democratic world. Now I would like to tell you about our work on the parliamentary level, and I would like to ask you support in some of areas. If we talk about Ukrainian parliament, we have done also a great job in this area. We have about 3 decrees which were adopted by Ukrainian parliament about the situation of deported children. We have also 3 decrees of our government in this sphere. And if we talk about the Council of Europe, I'm also the member of Ukrainian delegation to this Council of Europe. And Dmytro Lubinets was also the member of this delegation for his work on the position of ombudsman. So in PASE, we have adopted 5 resolutions. And the last one is one of the most strong resolutions. What is the resolution about? First of all, PASE called all other countries, all other parliaments to adopt the resolution about the situation in Ukraine and about our kids as a genocide. And actually, in this sphere, I would like to ask you, because here we see mostly American people, American students, American authorities, to call your Congress, your Senate, to adopt such important for us resolution. Now we have 2 resolutions in Congress of the United States, one about genocide and one about our children. And actually 2 days ago, we had very fruitful meeting with Ukrainian caucus in Congress, and we talked to them about this, that we need your leadership in this sphere. Because as I mentioned, in PASE, in other parliaments, we had a lot of different resolutions about the current situation in Ukraine, about the situation with our children, but you are our great friend and you are our partner. We ask you also to adopt such kind of resolutions. And in Senate, we also have one resolution about Ukrainian kids, and we also kindly ask your support in adoption this resolution in the nearest future, because it will be a great signal not only for Russia but for all democratic world that United States is together with Ukraine in this question. And actually, honestly, I would like to say you that unfortunately, the current situation in the world is very difficult. Because now China, other Eastern countries which are in something like coalition with Russia, they are looking what we are doing and what you are doing. And they are looking about their responsibility, they are looking about our action. And if we talk about real tools, what we can do together, as I mentioned, first of all, of course, we have to realize to have progress in legislation base. The second one, responsibility. My colleague Dmytro Lubinets told you that one of the most important questions to every people, to every man and woman, boy and girl in Ukraine is responsibility. And for whom they want this responsibility? They want this responsibility for Putin and top military and political leaders of Russia, which started this war. And one of the most important approach to reach this responsibility could be the establishment of the Special International Tribunal for Troika. And we also have some progress in this sphere because I am also in working group about the establishment Special International Tribunal, and we have some progress in Congress. Thanks to Congressman Keating, we have the resolution about this establishment, this tribunal. We had a lot of Zooms with his office, with Office of Committee of Foreign Affairs, and now we have very good result in the committee. This resolution was adopted by committee, but we are waiting for the adoption in the Congress. Also, I am happy to be here with the representative of State Department because we work together also about this issue, and we hope that we will have progress in this sphere because it will be a great signal and it will be a great leadership of the United States as a leader of all democratic world for the responsibility and accountability for each man and women in our country. The next step, and what I would like to ask Georgetown University, I absolutely agree that we need to share the information. We need to talk more about Ukraine. And we kindly ask you for your leadership in the organization, something like coalition of universities. I mean, top universities, to share information, to have such kind of events, and to talk a lot about this. You have a lot of wonderful students. They have social media, they communicate, and in future they will be your diplomats, politics, economists, financiers. So we are looking for your leadership in this sphere to combine, to unify the best universities and to start to do some programs, events, seminars to share the information about Ukraine. And the last but not the least, sanctions. Sanctions is very, very important for this. We ask you also to advocate sanctions on the individuals which were involved to the process of deportation of our Ukrainian children. Because we need to do practical steps. And sanctions is the most clear step for that Russians. Because honestly, their children, their money, they try, to save money in Europe or in other Western countries, and they are thinking about studying their children also not in Russia. So sanctions, it will be a great stimulus and a great signal from all democratic world. And we are, as parliamentarians, we are ready to assist you in all this sphere. We are ready to continue our advocacy work on all levels, and we are ready to be involved in activities in universities. We are ready to work with State Department in sanctions tribunal, in returning kids. But we also need your support, your understanding, and your position in this sphere. And I would like to repeat once more time. Eastern Coalition is looking. And they are looking what we are doing together and what we do not do together. Thank you so much.
So also on your QR code are links to the legislation for the 3 resolutions that are hanging out in Congress waiting to move. There are 3 resolutions in our Congress about this issue, not controversial at all, that have not moved through Congress. If you want to know what they are, you can read them on the QR code. And then you can read the even more impressive legislation coming out of the parliamentary assemblies of the Council of Europe. Really stellar language in there. And then I would just like to point out that Razum for Ukraine, Katya Pavlovich is in the audience. If you want to really watch advocacy in the US and what you can do, follow Razum for Ukraine and talk to Katya during our break. She will tell you how to get involved. As they say, I always thought somebody should do something about that, and then I realized I was somebody. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll move to Kirill Lapko. We've been talking a lot about deportation, but obviously children in Ukraine are affected in many more ways, 7.3 million, as we talked about. And your position with the Ukrainian government running the new coordination center for family upbringing and child care development is really looking holistically and not just about what's going on right now, but sort of future-proofing the system, shoring up the child protection system. And one of the things that I've noticed working on Ukraine for a number of years is there are a lot of efforts focusing on the deinstitutionalization of children. Prior to the war, there were 48,000 children living in institutions, a legacy of the Soviet system, which you're trying to move away from. And then those working on deportation, or the children who've been deported. And yet those issues are absolutely interlinked, right? So many of the kids who have been moved to Russia or Russian-occupied territories came from institutions. So your mandate is really kind of fixing that problem and then also future-proofing. How is that going? Who's supporting you? How are you getting it done? It's hard to change a system in the middle of a war, so.
Right. Thank you, Gillian, and we really appreciate everyone for coming today and Georgetown for hosting this event. And before I start, I have a short question to the audience. Have you ever experienced the moving from one state and one city to another when you were a child? Can you please raise your hands if you have such experience? Oh, a lot of you. Then I think you can imagine what does it feel like to say goodbye to your house, to your friends, and to the society that you're into for a lot of years. And that's what Ukrainian children really face. And that's what I face too. Because when the war started in 2014, I'm originally from Donetsk. So I was forced to leave the city. Our family lost absolutely everything. And what is interesting, that we faced the war twice in our life. When the invasion happened in 2022, and you will never imagine where we appeared to be. In Kyiv region, 10 miles away from Irpin. So we spent 2 more months in occupation and then evacuated successfully. But that's just one short story, and there are millions of such stories in Ukraine. As Gillian marked, we have more than 7.3 affected children in Ukraine. A lot of them were kidnapped. Some of them were evacuated abroad. A lot of them were internally displaced from east to west. A lot of them lost their parents. And that's a huge issue. And that's the biggest issue with child welfare system since the World War II. And that's probably why our center was initiated in 2023. Our main goal is to provide the deinstitutionalization reform, to create the special services for children and families, to be ensured that these children will arise in families, in family upbringings. Our center was initiated by the Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, the First Lady of Ukraine, and the European Commission President, the Ursula von der Leyen, to provide the DI reform in order to get the EU accession and in order to unite our society around the better care of our children. Our work is about coordinating different stakeholders, starting with national, as you call them, federal one, local, and international. We work on the whole vision and implementation of the DI, and our goal is to work on the services on the ground, to make them individual, to prevent the deprivation of children from families, and to work hard so children stay in families. And of course, the inclusive services that are included in our whole vision. The second one is the alternative family care, which is super important for orphans in our society and our country. Because we have to work on foster families, guardianships, and inclusive foster care for our children. The third one is what you, Gillian, also mentioned. We are engaged in working with reintegration of children that were kidnapped and then returned back to Ukraine. And that's the work that we are doing with our colleagues in Ukraine, with the Ombudsman's Office, with Save Ukraine, and with all other engaged partners. And that's just the first small part. Our sustainable goal is to transform the institutional care in Ukraine. So our kids are not in orphanages, they are in families, loving families. And that's a really hard and long process. We understand it, but we're doing everything we can in order to get from this Soviet Union system into democratical one, where we really appreciate and see the democracy and freedom of these children. And the last one is the socialization and integration of children that had experience of being in institutions, which is really important because a lot of them gone through institutions. They have big physical and mental traumas. And it's really important to get the transitional system from institutions to normal society. And our message here is to ask you for your support, not only the support in sponsorship, which is important, but we are not talking about this. We want you to be our advocates. We want you to be aware of what is going on in Ukraine with our children. We want you to share this information because that's terrible. And of course, technical support, expertise, which you have. Georgetown have already been engaged in a lot of our initiatives on providing support in reintegration of children, on getting better services in Ukraine. So get to us and let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I want to give you each a minute for final comments, something you didn't say that you might want to end with, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A from the audience. Would you like to start?
Yeah, I can add. Okay, I will try very short. First of all, yeah, thank you that today we have a new coalition for returning Ukrainian children. We worked hard. It was the initiative of Canada. For a peace formula of our president, 10 points. Point number 4, returning all deportees from Russian territory, children, civilian hostages, prisoners of war. It's my responsibility, and Canada became the first country as a co-chair country for point number 4, and we appreciate that now we see the concrete implementation of peace formula of our president. I think that all countries who support the normal idea that children must live on the motherland with own parents must unite to this coalition. But we will see again what it will be the participation on this coalition. And the one thing that I want to add to my colleague, she said absolutely the right thing, that we need to sanctions. Yeah, really. But we need to, again, concrete sanctions. You can see the results. For example, how many years Iran under sanctions? More than 20 years. You see the result. Iran develops their military machine on that size. That's now Iran sold to Russians missiles and Iran drones. Northern Korea the same. So when we are talking about sanctions, we can use that sanctions mechanism who really has the influence of blocking of a whole economy development of Russian Federation. When we are talking today about the genocide, why we need to recognize it? Because the next step, it must be recognizing the Russian Federation as a state who supports terrorism. Even more, Russian Federation is state terrorist. The next step, automatically, to close the whole cooperation on the economic sphere, political sphere, for whole countries, and stopping and destroying, not even stop, but even destroying the Russian economy. So only this way, on the case of sanctions, we need to use, not simply to create sanctions many years without effect, without result. So we should to all our initiative understand, then implement, but the most important, to check the result. Is this effective mechanism or not? If not, we should change it. If yes, we should to continue provide it. Thank you.
Go next.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that it's wonderful discussion and very helpful for us discussion. So I'm sure that Georgetown University could lead such kind of discussion and events and could unify other universities for such kind of topics. Another thing what I could like to add, we need to ensure safe life for that kids which will be returned to Ukraine and for all kids in Ukraine. And for this, we need to win in this war, and for this, we need military assistance. We need more weapons, more military assistance, and only in this case, we will ensure for all our kids safe and happy life in Ukraine. Also about the sanctions, I agree with my colleagues that we need more strong and more clear sanctions. These sanctions will help us to stop Russia in a lot of areas. And the next one, we need, of course, to improve this legislation in the United States, in Canada, in other countries, to demonstrate all over the world the leadership in this sphere. And of course, I think that such kind of dialogues we need to have very on a regular basis, because we need to share this information with you. We need to share the current situation in Ukraine, and only in this case we will have the attention of all democratic world to our country.
Thank you. Kirilo?
I'm going to emphasize only on two aspects. First aspect, and I'm going to join Mr. Dmytro, that Russia is a terrorist state, and we all should remember it. And the second aspect, Ukraine will ensure that our children will arise in family-based care. The same way as you do in United States, in the field of democracy, freedom, rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will use this 1 minute with a special mission. My American friends always told me, be grateful. I want to be grateful for everybody who helping us rescue kids. And I'm grateful for Georgetown University, especially you, Gillian, for organizing this. Milan, thank you. Grateful Buffett Foundation who help us come here, bring our kids here. Our partners here, A Family for Every Orphan, All Hands and Hearts, Eric, Creative Associates, and FGS Global, American Federation of Teachers, Ambassador Craig Johnson, Razom, Government of United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, Helsinki Commission of Congress, Ukrainian Embassy, and my friends who are on the stage. Thank you very much.
Okay. I will take this opportunity to emphasize again 2 of the points I made and add another one which Dimitro brought up and is very salient. So first, while we are speaking amongst a group of like-minded individuals in this room who are tracking all of the atrocities in Ukraine, we still need to be out there talking about it. And so thank you, Georgetown, for providing this platform for us to talk about these issues and to hear so poignantly from our Ukrainian friends what is really going on. So we need to continue that drumbeat, and part of that is personalizing it. So thank you for letting us hear from Ukrainian children what they have actually gone through. It's easy to become numb when you hear just the huge numbers. It is much harder to be inured to it and to dismiss it when you hear the individual cases, and that's what we need to continue to do. I will quote my secretary in that we cannot become numb to what is happening in Ukraine. We also need to look at the practical. So I applaud Canada and their leadership role in this regard, and the things that we have done so far on the ground as the United States government, and we will continue to double down on that and look at what else we can do. And to my point about what Dimitro said is we need to be results driven. We need to evaluate what we've already done and see what going forward would be useful. There's not one size fits all for this. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Thank you.
You forgot someone?
Yeah,
No?
I want to say thank you, Ukrainian Embassy, too.
Yeah. I don't know if Kati is still on. She's had a really long day. If you are on, there she is. Look at that.
So sure, in my 1 minute, I will pick up on several of the themes that have already come up. I think it was Dean Hellman in his opening remarks who said that very few people can be indifferent to the plight of Ukrainian children if they come to understand what is happening to them. But the challenge is that not enough people know. So again, to say it's so important to be shining a light on this situation. And then once we know more, I think everyone in your audience, everyone who learns more about the situation of Ukrainian children needs to be demanding of their policymakers in their own country, whether that's the US or Canada or anywhere else, that those policymakers take practical, concrete actions to bring children back. Thank you.
And I just want to say, after working in this field of global child protection for 20-something years, I have never been so inspired by the grit and tenacity, the creativity, and the warmth. I mean, we've interacted on a few occasions in a few different events, and you guys have become close, dear friends. And the way you get your work done is just so extraordinary. I have a vision that when the war is over, the world will be coming to you guys to learn about how to build a child protection system, a global response. Because truly you are showing us everything that we need to know. So we have so much to learn from you, and I hope that people will not come to Georgetown to learn about child protection only, but they'll come to you guys and your universities, and that we'll have a partnership to really, really develop this field, this expertise, this best practice under your guidance and your leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have some time for questions, but I also am aware that these guys are exhausted. You've been at it for 2 years plus, 10 years. But we have some time for questions, and then we do also have some food for those who can stay and want to chat more. Any questions from the floor?
Girls with microphone.
Shall we go for mic or shall we go?
Oh, sure. If you have the microphone, you go, and then you can pass it to Chris. Ladies first, of course.
Okay. Hi. Well, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. Natalia Mayer, Nova Ukraine. I have a question for Ms. Chulik. We as American citizens now, what do you think is the most practical and the most effective tool that we can use to help this cause, to support this? And maybe as NGOs as well.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I will quote my colleague in Canada, work all avenues of the system in the United States to make sure that everybody understands what is happening there and the importance of our continued support for Ukraine.
Добрий день, ласкаво просимо до Washington, D.C. Мене звати Chris. I'm an American researcher, and I'm very happy to be here today. I wanted to start by saying thank you to each of the panelists. Thank you for your tireless work. Your relentless advocacy on this issue, as we've heard today, is incredibly desperate. I appreciate also you recalling us to the fact that this crisis is ongoing presently, right now, even as we speak. 20,000 is a crushing number. It's even more inconceivable to think that that is the low ball, the lowest possible number of confirmed children just since the full-scale invasion. I'm also cognizant of the fact that crisis fatigue is a real thing, even amongst those of us who work in the field. And it's easy to fall into the trap of apathy and indifference. But I want the audience to walk away empowered today. And so if you could recommend one action that everyone here in this room and everyone online can take, one practical step that we can do right now, even tonight, to help, what would it be?
Just to go to Save Ukraine website, find it, and donate. And we will rescue one more child. Practical way.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one suggestion. If you really want to do something, we really understand that now the decision of continue to assistance of Ukraine by the United States of America is lay on the table of the Senate and Congress. So right now, if you can find the links of all senators and congressmen, please send the SMS about this situation of Ukraine with messages that you heard today. Maybe it will be the additional arguments to vote very quickly for this so important decision for us. Because every day, exactly right now, I know that in Ukraine on the front line, and not only on the front line, someone dead today for independence of Ukraine, for independence of another countries, exactly democratic countries. So I don't know how many students has this perfect institution, but if one student can send one SMS to one decision maker, it will be so big wave of additional pressure to your decision maker, and the results will be best for all of us. Thank you.
And I would like to add, if it's possible to add, Dmitro, I absolutely agree. And what is the most important and what we heard here from Nicole, please share the information about this meeting. Share the information about the figures of children that were deported. Because now in the United States we have election year, and the opinion of voters is very important for your congressmen, for your senators, and if you will share this information with your friends, with your colleagues through the social media, it will help us, I mean Ukraine, to advocacy more effective our interest. And I agree with Mykola, and I support Mykola. This is the biggest organization, non-profit, non-government organization, which help to return our kids home. So support them.
I'm just going to add a real little practical thing to what Mrs. Lesa just told you. You can use social medias, but you can easily come home and tell about this meeting to your family, to your friends, and they can then share this information to their friends, to their families. And that's how the awareness works, probably. And that's what is needed from our end and for us, for Ukrainians. Just arise these questions. Just show real picture what is going on in Ukraine. Because sometimes it looks like that nobody here, nobody see us. But the war is still going, and we never know when it have to be finished. Thank you.
Oh, name's Dave Onspach, unaffiliated, retired. I've heard that we've had these hundreds of billions of dollars of seized Russian assets in Europe and in the U.S., and I'm trying to find out why we're still shelling out taxpayer money for arms aid to Ukraine when we can have used these Russian assets to fund that. I've always wondered why, you know, and I've heard that we've only seized half of the Russian assets out there in the West. And so I'm just wondering why that can't be brought to bear to defeat, first of all, defeat Russia, and then second of all, with humanitarian and infrastructure rebuilding. Thank you.
I'll jump in on that. So I don't have a good answer for you right now. That is an ongoing conversation as to what we could do with those assets and whether that's a viable option. There are some negatives to that, but as you pointed out, there are some possible positives to using it as well. That's an unsatisfactory answer, but it is under discussion as a possibility. So stay tuned.
Sure. If I may, I would like to add about financial support. We highly appreciate all American, all European financial support. But I would like also to highlight that 70% of all money that we have received from the United States, they still were worked in the United States for the producing weapon, for the different spheres. So this money helped you to develop your national economy.
Дякую. Мене звати Philip Goldman. Я президент Maestral International. And as you can see, Americans are learning Ukrainian language. Really, thank you for the panel. So, about a year ago, the United States produced a very important estimate of the costs of rebuilding Ukraine. And the number was something over $400 billion, which was surely an underestimate, but still, it was a number that everybody was looking at. That number is being revised, so in a few weeks, we'll be seeing how much larger the number is a year later. My question to you, members of government, parliament, civil society, United States, Canada, the international community, is how do we ensure that the future recovery estimates include the resources needed to create the system, the social welfare system that Kirilo was talking about, that all of you are talking about that ensures that all of Ukraine's children are protected and supported after the incredible trauma that all of them have been going through, whether they're inside Ukraine or returning from outside Ukraine into the country. How do we advocate to make sure that recovery estimate includes what you need? Thank you.
I think I can start. Mr. Philip, thank you so much for your question. From the coordination center perspective, we're probably the one who are coordinating all the stakeholders, as I told you during our speech. And our general vision is to show what is the governmental vision on DI in Ukraine and what specific gaps we have. We have different platforms to share this information in Ukraine, which are the International Expert Council that was established, the International Donor Council that is going to be established, and all these platforms are the platforms for you to participate and where we can share with you all the gaps. And you can fulfill them and choose the ones that are more appropriate for your specific way of doing your job. Thank you.
I want to add something. Philip, it looked like very soon all Americans will speak Ukrainian. If we will, if we will not stop this war, we have to stop this war. It's for your interests, for American interests.
It's a lot of work, though.
Yeah. But I've been in Davos maybe 2 weeks ago, and I asked, everybody talked about supplies, about assets of Russian assets. We have to maybe create a methodology how we evaluate of these losses, of children's losses, families' losses, yeah, because educational, welfare, social welfare, child welfare, and healthcare, and not only talk about weapon, to use these assets for weapon and infrastructure, but more for people, because they lost a lot, yeah, and we need weapon, but we have to evaluate. As for me, it's billions of dollars because it's huge traumas. As many people were killed, lost their parents, kidnapped, educational gaps. It's all of these losses should be covered. Thank you.
I think I would like to add to your point. It's one thing to look at a U.S. government foreign assistance budget and see the military section, and you can see the humanitarian section. Drilling down to actually understand what levels of assistance go to support children or child welfare is really, really difficult. I know because I used to track this for the U.S. government across all the agencies. It's a nightmare. And it's also a really, really, really tiny bit of money, but every drop counts. One of the ways around this is to ensure that in appropriations language, which always comes attached to a bill, there's specific language referencing children, child welfare systems, repatriation. Those who are working on the advocacy front, or if you're studying this stuff from Georgetown as a student, if you're interested, study that language. If it doesn't exist in a draft bill, that means the money will probably not trickle down to organizations like Kyrillos or Mykolas. So we have to make sure that that happens, and that's part of the training that we need to do as child protection people. Where does the money go? Where the money goes, the energy flows. So that's our discipline, that's our job here in Washington. This is what we do in Washington, so let's do that. Yeah.
I can answer a little bit on your question about budget because I represent budget committee in my parliament, so I know a little bit about state budget. And I would like to say that this year, I mean 2024, we have our Ukrainian state budget totally about $85 billion. And more than 60% of this budget we will spend for the military needs, for the defense. And what is the most important? That all incomes which we have in Ukraine, we will spend for our army. So we have the deficit of our budget, about $60 billion. And this deficit we will cover thanks to our partners. Yesterday we had a really wonderful for us solution from the European Union about approximately for $45 billion. 55 billion of dollars. And all this money, which we will have from our international partner, we will cover mostly our social programs, including healthcare, education for children, childcare. So all this money from international partners we will spend also for our children.
Could I add a word, Gillian, if possible?
Yeah, please, of course. Nice to see you again.
Okay, just it has been a long day, but this is such a fascinating discussion. I have to stay on. Just with in response to that question about the rapid damage and needs assessment report that came out last year, that did indeed indicate $411 billion in damages. That was primarily around physical infrastructure damage and economic damage, and I don't think it includes anything around what still needs to be done to build back people's lives other than the physical infrastructure of their lives. So I think it's very important, as you were saying, that at every opportunity we continue to remind about all of the non-physical elements that are important that also need funding. The First Lady has her mental health initiative, so important that we think about things beyond physical infrastructure as we come out of this war, we hope, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Really good point.
One remark that my colleague said about the decision of European Union, European Commission, of the financial program for assistance of Ukraine. But this budget for 4 years. We need 60 billions for 2024, and European Union voted for 50 billions for 4 years. So that's why I mentioned that we need the assistance of the United States of America. This is the first. And the second, we discussed a lot of the humanitarian program, rebuilding of Ukrainian infrastructure. But you can understand that, that every day Russia continues to destroy Ukraine. And the budget grow up. Budget that we need for rebuilding. That's first. The second, a lot of humanitarian project, for example, for our children infrastructure. And we appreciate it. Yeah, really. But again, we can understand that as long this war will continue, as less the number of children will live in Ukraine. So we can have very big budgets, but if we stop, we will not stop this aggression, we will really have the position that in Ukraine we will be without children. And can you imagine the nation without children? This nation will die. And now, every month, I see the number, how many Ukrainian families go from Ukraine territory abroad. And the number grow up and grow up. And the last month, 87% of the people who left Ukraine, it was women with children. Men in Ukraine, men continue to fight, but women with children live abroad. This is the main dangers for us. Thank you.
There's a question here, Ian.
With microphone.
Yes,
So
in,
you and then Milan. Yeah, go ahead.
in the spirit of practical steps that Dmytro and Nikolai have told us about, and the billions of dollars, there's a congressional scorecard on how these things are dealt with, and I would really encourage us all, because there is enormous goodwill in this country for what you represent. If you're from these states, Colorado, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina in particular, I would encourage you to contact your representatives in the House and encourage them to support this effort.
Dmytro, you called for an international tribunal to deal with Russian aggression, but many of Ukraine's closest friends support a hybrid tribunal. Can you explain to the audience why a hybrid tribunal would be much less effective and some of the difficulties with it?
Thank you very much for question. I will try to explain that. I know that's the position of the United States and other countries. It's to create not exactly tribunal, but something another. The main problem is how to punishment the Russians without personal presenting of the Russians in some case. ICC, International Criminal Court, had a lot of good job, exactly, and we appreciate in Ukraine for the personal position of prosecutor Han. It was, I divide this result for one part, that it was the result of our system, and first of all, this is the result of our general prosecutor of Ukraine. But the most important, that's the prosecutor Han decided to check all these details and to recognize it like war crimes and to create arrest warrants against Putin and Lyova Belova. The first time on the history of Russian Federation and exactly on the history of Europe, the president of the European country under the arrest warrant. What the main problem that's according to our position of Ukraine, we should to use our experience that we had. The tribunal was created after the Second World War. It was successful. It was the main decision of countries who fought against Germany on that time. So we don't want to organize something anew. Why? We have good experience. That's why we recommend, we suggest, we initiative to do the same as our country had. So this is the main idea. We know that we will do it quickly if our countries, our partners, our partners will assist us. And again, first of all, honestly, I have my own communication with a lot of countries. And always when I talk with European countries, we very appreciate for all of their activities, but all of them try to understand the position of the United States of America. The first country who gave us military assistance, the USA. Only after that, European countries started to do the same. The same financial assistance. The first, the United States of America, after another, our partners. On this case, the same. We pleasantly ask the United States of America understands our initiative. That it's clear, that's understandable for all, and it's easy to do it very quickly. Because again, it's not the question of Ukraine. The punishment of Russian Federation, it must be like a prevention of new potential aggression. All aggressors can be sure, must be sure that in any day they will be under punishment, and they will be in the historical books like war crimes. We, we try to explain this our position before a new aggressions points appears on the walls. And again, I always see the same aggressor states on the case of Israel. The same. Who trained its terrorists of Hamas? The Russian Wagner private army. Who gave to this terrorist weapon? Iran. And you really think that it was simply a plan of this terrorist? No, it was the same countries who try to do new aggressions and new aggressions. Now we see the same between Northern Korea and South Korea. And to my mind, that of all these aggressors stands behind the one country, very big country, China, and looking for the best time to do the same. We're really on the level of the high level of representatives of different countries. We discuss the potential aggression of China against Taiwan. We discussed it, and we continue to discuss it. So that's why we try to explain, look, we want to close this question per one day. If we will, in the condition of the aggression, we will unite per one day all our efforts to press in different ways to this aggressor country and to close this question for everyone, one for all time. Thank you.
I would like to add, if I may, about the establishment international tribunal and why we are asking to establish not hybrid form. We have a lot of discussion with State Department, with Congress. First of all, I would like to start. We have very good collaboration with ICC in the prosecution of war crimes. But if we talk about the international tribunal, we would like to prosecute only one crime, crime of aggression. Crime of aggression, Russia against Ukraine. Only one case we would like to prosecute. Why we don't do it in the framework of ICC? Because Russia didn't ratify Rome Statute. So ICC can't help us in this situation because of the international law. What is the next, the most important issue? The immunity of Troika. The immunity of top political and top military leaders. If we talk about the prosecution in the crime of aggression, Putin and his political military leaders, we need to have the decision which will be recognized by all international environment. In this case, we need to create new mechanism, new institutional international tribunal which will prosecute this case. And if we will agree with the hybrid form, we will not destroy this immunity. And the main sense of this tribunal will be destroyed, will be destroyed. So we kindly ask our partners, we kindly ask the United States to support this position. Because if you will go to Ukraine and you will ask men, women, boys and girls who are responsible for the war, they will tell you in one voice, Putin and political military leaders of Russia. So we have together to prosecute them. And it's possible only in the framework of the International Special Tribunal. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take one last question from, oh, there are two of you, sorry. Okay, so we'll do quickly you, and then maybe go directly back to back, and then they can answer, and we'll wrap up.
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for your tireless efforts. My name is Abby. I'm an American history teacher. I live in Dallas, Texas, and you can be sure I will be bringing your message home with me to my first-time voters in my classroom this week. I suppose my question is a little bit more at the micro level as an educator. Your children are your future. And besides the family unit and your foster family unit, I believe that teachers are on the front line with those soldiers every day trying to protect your children. And so I'm curious to know, can you speak to, I've read in the news the tireless efforts of your educators trying to keep your children safe and trying to provide some sense of normalcy in a time of unbelievable chaos. I'm wondering if you could speak to a little bit what the situation looks like on the ground for your children in terms of their education and the support that not only you're providing them, but what we can do besides, again, advocating. Is there anything we can do for you as educators here in the United States to support the continuing efforts to keep your children safe and educated and the futures of your country?
Katya, did you want to? The second question, and then we'll, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your speech. It's a very short question. We mostly focused here on the abduction of children and war crimes against children. And while researching this topic for over a year, one cannot pass the fact that during the most horrific crime against children, where children are taken against their will, and children are the most vulnerable and cannot sustain their own repatriation, there is a huge effort on deportation of Ukrainian adults, people with disabilities, people of elderly. I wonder if Pan Lebenets could just shed light slightly on that part of the systematic policy of deportation, so that we have on the back of our minds why Ukraine cannot settle for some territories just for the sake of peace by exposing all of its population to the crime of deportation in general. Thank you.
Education and the second question. So whichever one you want. Yeah.
Start from education. I'll start from last news I received just now. 4 more kidnapped children cross the border with Ukraine. Yeah, and this week, together with my colleagues, we returned 8 more kids. Yeah, what is maybe not big, but it's kids. It's 8 more lives who returned and could be reintegrated. About your questions, we are developed our Education and Empowerment Community Center. We have 50 now. Our commitment for this year, 50 these centers. It's unique centers where combine education, because now we have 8, 9, 10 years old children who cannot read or write. It never happened before. Never. We had very good educational system, but because COVID and war, huge educational losses, and we have children with traumas, with delays, and it's horrible. That's why in these centers we have methodology, and we just this month we will open 3 more centers with World Vision support. We launched some center with USAID support, and this model where we have hot meals for child, education, trauma therapy, and parenting program for parents together, and we can replicate this model all over Ukraine, and it is. For us, it's a very good service for kids who've been traumatized, who are affected by the war. Yeah.
Second question?
Second question. Thank you
This
for...
is the last one. This
yeah.
is it. You're almost done.
No. Thank you for your question. It is very important. Yeah, really. We have a lot of initiatives, and we appreciate for these initiatives for discussion of the deportation of Ukrainian children. And now we see the results, international coalition, we have NGOs, as Mykola Kuleba, we have the results. We're returning Ukrainian children back from Russian territory. What about civilian? I use definition civilian hostages for emphasizing the real situation of civilian people. Russia creates a new system of pressure to Ukrainian population who still live on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. Can you imagine that now in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, Russia created filtration camps? That's, for example, if you want to drive from one city to another, you should achieve special permission from military administration of Russian Federation. You should come to this military administration with whole your family, with wife, with children. After that, the family must be divided. Men separate, women separate, children separate. After that, Russians provide so-called interview. Ask the questions. You know, for example, did you sing the Ukrainian songs in your family? Or did you wear the Ukrainian national clothes, vyshyvanka, like this? What do you think the answers? Yes, this is the Ukrainian territory, this is the Ukrainian people. But only for these answers, men and women goes to prison. And children, if this family has the relatives in this city, Russians can give these children to relatives. But if you don't have, the children goes to Russian territory and to start the procedure of adoption, these children. I have a lot of similar examples. Putin creates a new so-called Russia. And he is different from Stalin and Lenin. When I heard that Stalin, it was most horrible war crimes on the history, no, Putin is the most. You know what the difference? Lenin and Stalin organized Soviet Union with different countries, with different nations. Yeah, it was maybe like a picture, but we have in Ukraine, Ukrainian, Soviet Social Republic, Ukrainian. What now creates Putin? One country, Russian, one nation, Russians, one language, Russian language, one church, Moscow Orthodox Patriarchate, and everyone who not agreed with this position, you will be or prison or die. So on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, it's the system of pressure where all Ukrainians' children must recognize themselves as Russians, must use only Russian language, must be members of youth military organizations, must prepare themselves to be Russians military, and Russians preparing a new generations of Russian army for new big war. And do you know who the enemy for Russians now? No, it's not Ukrainians. No, it's Americans and the so-called West. For Ukraine, they say that in Ukraine we have the fascist regime, but we don't fight against only Ukrainians. We fight against NATO and first of all against Americans. So that's why we send this message that when you assist us, you assist you. Now you can end this aggression in our country. Only our army take participation in this war now. Yeah, with your weapons. Without we've lost. But if we will not, as I mentioned, react very quickly, this war will be closer and closer for you. And we had the same situation before Second World War started, absolutely the same. And on Monday, I gave interview to American TV channel. And you know, I said that in my mind, now we have Third World War. We have one group's countries against another. And who will win will develop this world. We're so far away from each other, yeah, thousands of kilometers from Ukraine to the United States of America. But we're so close. We have the same values. We believe to the same freedoms. We are the same democratic nations. We are the same once be independent countries. We are not far away. We stand near each with other. So we together. And again, you are the leader. And the whole democratic world, and not only democratic, the dictators, the same, look exactly for your position, for your decisions, for your activities. And you now have this historical chance to decide who will be the winner on this war. So please read. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks to Kati online. Thanks to the many watching online. Feel free to stay if you can. We have some refreshments. Onward and upward. We have our marching orders. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you.